All right, guys. Hey, Paul McLean here. Welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. And I'm excited that you joined today. And I'm excited that every week you've made this a part of your routine. I know I get a lot of messages like, man, every week I hop on and these guests, they feed me and they feed me well, And so I'm excited that you're here with us. Our goal is to provide as much value to you as possible so that way you can go out and make this week better than last week. And the way I'm doing that today is bringing on my great buddy, the newest integrity marketing partner, Dave Whichard. Dave, how you doing, bro?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, it is our honor and privilege, and man, I'm excited, dude. I don't know if I've been this excited to have somebody on. No disrespect to all the guests that just were on the last 4 or 5 weeks, but dude, I'm really excited about having you on, man. You just partnered with Integrity Marketing Group. Your video, the announcement, man, it almost made me tear up, dude. I was trying to battle it. And then again, it could be because I love you, also because I got 4 daughters, so there's a lot of estrogen that flows through my blood, I guess. But it was an exciting moment to see that, man. You've done so much for this overall company. I know your family's impacted by this partnership, but also, dude, you've had such a massive impact on so many agents, and the entire organization of Family First Life is the way I see it. I believe that there's people that there's no neutral people. There, anybody that's got a sphere of influence or they're associating with a group of people, they're either negative or they're positive, man. And you've been such a light. You've been so positive for me and my business. You've set such a great example of being all in. When you hit this scene, man, it wasn't like you're tiptoeing, dude. You rushed at this thing, man. You went out there and worked 24/7. And, I think about, and not to compare you to this, but I heard this saying. They said that like immigrants are 7 times more likely to become millionaires than natural born citizens, and it's because they understand like the opportunity that they've got. And Dave, when I saw you hit the scene, I saw a guy that was just like, man, I've got a shot now. I've got a true opportunity to go out there and really do what I wanted to do from day one, which is serve people, help families, build a business, and really take my family and put them in a better financial position than ever before. And dude, I saw that day in and day out. And I do believe that in this business, that passion that's derived from your purpose, it can be clouded. It can be clouded out by just the monotony, the mundane day in, day out activities. And Dave, I just want to thank you, man, because ever since I met you, you fueled my fire, that passion, desire that I've got to go out there and do my best to be impactful to agents and help them out and give them the lessons I've learned and the things I've screwed up and be an impact player, a meaningful specific. And you throw fuel on that fire for me, and you bring clarity where the clouds can come in with the familiarity of doing it day in and day out. And so I appreciate you, man, and really excited to have you on, brother. So we're going to get right into it. All right. What I want to do is first kind of address, finding freedom with Family First Life. That's what I really want to get into. It's July 4th, right? And so it's very much, applicable to today. And I want to kind of go through how somebody really lives in the freedom that Family First Life can provide. It's one thing to join Family First Life, and now you do have freedom as far as your schedule. Maybe before you didn't have the ability to control what you were going to make and how much money you were going to earn. But now it's up to you, right? There's freedom. You've left maybe that 9 to 5, or now maybe you've been here for a while, but you've not really experienced the freedom that FFL has to offer. What I want to do today, Dave, because I think you've exemplified this better than anybody else, really taking advantage of the shot that FFL gives you to live that freedom. And so the first thing I've noticed with you, Dave, is you're very coachable, man. Like when you came on board, whether it was Andrew or Sean, like saying, hey, let me give you some feedback. I've crossed the path, step here, step there. Don't do this, don't do that. Dude, you took massive action, and you were able to do that amidst probably a feeling of like maybe fear, maybe uncertainty, maybe doubt, maybe not understanding why I should do that, but you always moved anyways. Can you kind of talk about the power of coachability and how coachability really does lead to freedom as an agent being with Family First Life?
Yeah, man. Thanks, first of all, for having me on. It's always an honor, Paul, and you've been instrumental in our success and paving the road. And so many of you guys, I just want to thank whoever is watching. That anybody that went before us, thank you, because without you doing the things you guys did in the very beginning and growing this organization, and with Sean, Andrew, you, and all the other integrity partners, for example, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have had this opportunity. So thank you guys for that. As far as coachability goes, I guess at the end of the day, playing sports growing up, I think about, when I played football, it's like if I was playing defense or offense or whatever the coach might have said, if I didn't run the play correctly, then it could mess up everybody, so you had to know what you were doing. You had to be in the right spots, if not, you had to be fast enough to catch up or, change the play the next, whatever it is, you had to make an adjustment. And so being coachable is what got you on the field. I mean, if you were talented, great, but if you weren't listening, you weren't going to be on the field very long because you mess everybody else up. There's 11 people on that field, and if you're doing your own thing all the time, it can mess the other 10 up. So going with that, coming here, when working with Andrew as an example, I had two choices. I could take all the knowledge that I had or what I thought I knew and just, be that person, or I could summons to what he's saying and listen and just be coachable in a way that I literally, Paul, and to this day it's the same way. I was talking to Sean just the other day and I'm like, Coach, call the play. Whatever it is you tell me to do, I'm still going to do. I'm going to, drive wherever, fly wherever, do whatever, where we're at now, train in a certain way, recruit in a certain way, wherever ideas I can get, I'm going to go apply them. Otherwise, why would I ask? So if I'm going to ask for someone's help, I just looked at it. Andrew said, pretty simple. He told me to get, leads that I could call, people that ask for my help, dial the phone. Don't think about how many dials necessarily, but how many appointments you get. At that time it was kind of weird looking back. He had this number 24, wherever that came from. Now we talk about 30. But, we were looking to 20, 30 appointments a week at that time. And we wanted to protect at least 10 families a week. And so he just told me that. And so that's what I went and did. And I made adjustments along the way and asked questions as I went. And to be totally transparent, as you may or may not know, I didn't have anybody to help me in the home. I had to figure it out. He's like, well, how do I learn Americo? I'm like, well, he said, just go on. We had FFL Go is what we used. That's what I still would use if I went in the field today. And I went through each product. I learned it. Did the best I could, and I ran that every single time. And then later on, Trey and Albert Lau and a couple guys that I could call, he gave me their numbers, and the rest I just figured it out through repetition. And I'd always heard this in the business, but it was the same here. It was like, the faster you can get in front of 100 people. I had sold life insurance. My practice company sold supplemental. I'd sold a little bit of life insurance, but we just didn't have a good product. So I knew enough to talk about it. I knew what it was, and I kept it simple, which is we basically do two things here. We sell final expense and we sell term. Not that difficult, Are there different things you can do within those? Yes, but that's really the simplicity of what we do. And so I just went to work, man. I wasn't afraid of hard work. You're right. I had a machine in front of me. I was seeing people succeed, and why would I question it, right? So the first week, the first time I went in the field, I knew he was not lying to me because I went out and ran X amount of appointments. And then on Monday, I knew I was getting a nice deposit from my work that I'd done on Thursday and Friday from America. And I remember being in the room, my wife said, wow, Dave, I can get used to that. And I said, so can I. And from that point forward, I just continued to understand that what was in front of me worked, why question it. So we continue to do that. I met Sean for the first time. He said to me, if you'll go protect 30, 40 families a month, you'll not change your lifestyle, you'll hire staff, you'll invest the money back in. And he knew I would do that because I told him my previous story. He knew I wasn't afraid. He still saw something in me. And to be honest with you, Paul, and there's probably people maybe watching this right now are coming from somewhere else. They feel a little bit beat down. They maybe don't believe in themselves quite as much as they used to. But what I did believe in is my work ethic. So I knew I would figure it out. I just happened to figure it out a little quicker than I thought, which the previous companies I worked for, it was the same thing. If they told me to do 10, I did 20. If they told me to do 5, I did 10. It was always doing that. So when it came to dial, I didn't ask how many dials. I just knew I had to dial the phone enough to get enough appointments and get in front of enough people. And then once I got in the home, it wasn't that big a deal. It was really just figuring out how to use my iPad. That's all it was. So that's how I did. I just kept it simple. I kept not overthinking it, and I worked. My first year here, as you know, we had the ability. We rode Hall of Fame, And the reasons that we did that was because, like I said, Sean said, do that and then invest it back in, hire good staff, and it'll grow. And then we went on social media. I hope that's answering your question, but I just didn't overthink everything. I just literally just the coach called the play. I went and did it, and then and Andrew can tell you this too. And I talked to you several times throughout the last couple of years too. But usually when I called you, it was an issue, right? Or I had a question, and then I would go apply it. Same thing with Andrew. I didn't bother him. I mean, like I had to go to work and be an adult and take care of me, my family, and eventually the staff and so on. And I was telling somebody the other day, Paul, just recently, and actually when I saw the video for the first time, I had tears in my eyes, literally, and I remember thinking in that moment, I just wanted someone else to feel that feeling. And so when it came to my work here, it was the same way. And so I know, like right now, it's just, I wake up, how can I help more people? And if I focus on that, and if I focus on it's about other people, it's amazing how that works because it's not about me. The feelings I'm having in a day-to-day life and work and everything else, it doesn't really matter because I'm focused on helping everyone else, if that makes sense.
It does, man. And I think you said it, the phrase you said a couple times really resonates well with me, man. You said, I just didn't overthink it. And see, for anybody in this business, that's what you get the privilege to do, is to not have to overthink it. Because your thought process, where you're at right now, is a direct reflection of your greatest thoughts. Your life's always moving in the direction of your greatest thoughts, and your thought process has got you where you're at. Now, your same level of thinking is not going to get you to the level that you desire to get to, right? I've got this goal. Well, you're thinking, if you're right here and this is your goal, this thinking is not going to get you here. The benefit we have with Family First Life is that the people that have already crossed that path, you can work off their thought process if you make the choice to be coachable. And then you just don't have to overthink it. Now, it doesn't have to make sense, though, either. And by the way, this is the one thing that I came to the conclusion of, Dave, that really helped me, is that it shouldn't make sense. Because if it made sense, it would be my thought process. It'd be or too close to my thought process. When somebody said, dude, just dial these leads. And I'm like, well, dude, I don't know the product. I mean, I need to know the product. Well, no, you don't. But my thought process said I needed to know the product. But their thought process was they already knew, like, that's not what you need. You need to see people. You need to get in front of people. And then we're going to tell you what product to write based off of the people you sit with, right? My thought process said, man, once I, have X amount, then I can hire my first recruiter. Their thought process was, dude, if you hire a recruiter, you're going to go out there and do more because that responsibility grows. You'll rise up to it. And so that's the biggest thing I could tell everybody, man. Like, when you're getting started, or the greatest valleys that I've stepped into, Dave, is when I start working off my thought process, because maybe I'm starting to experience something that was maybe even bigger than I expected. Or I didn't really think I would eventually get to writing or helping 40 families, but now I'm here. And now, man, I'm pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, I help 40 families. And then all of a sudden you start going back into the thought process you've got, and you stop stretching and growing by hearing the thought process of somebody else and allowing coachability to keep doing its work and pulling you to new heights and new levels. And I think the coachability, Dave, it's too many people get stuck in should I dial now? Should I get an office now? Should I go run those appointments in that location? Should I buy these kind of leads? Should I buy more leads? Should I hire recruiters? Should I go do this? And the reason why they're in this should I mindset is because they're not coachable, because the path has already been laid out. There's already a directive of what's your next step by the person you're working with. But if you're asking yourself too frequently, if you sit back and just really take a pause, if you say should I too many times, you're probably not coachable. And when you're thinking should I, you're thinking based off of your feelings and emotions, and those feelings and emotions are going to lead you to the exact same result that you've got, because the emotions and feelings are derived from your same thought process. And so I think it's so essential to just stop and say, man, I can put all my energy and effort not from thinking of should I and going back and forth on that. I can just now put it all into massive action amidst the feeling that it doesn't really feel like I should. And so I think that's such a powerful thing that I've witnessed you do day in and day out, man. You're such a coachable guy. And there's so much humility that comes with coachability too, that says, man, I'm just going to keep, being led and guided and directed. I'm not a self-made person. I'm a person that gets around people that see the best in me, that have the best desires for me. And by the way, like Dave, how did you just trust when Andrew said, do this? Why did you just trust?
Well, I knew if one man could, do it and be successful, I believed in myself enough to do that, because I knew it was just numbers. When he said, "Hey, do this many talks, dial the phone, have all that," I could figure that out. But he, it's funny because I told him that. He goes, "I trusted you." He goes, "When?" And he wasn't used to hearing that. And I said, "Really, the first Monday after I started work." He goes, "How's that?" And I'm like, "Dude, you told me to book the appointments." I did. I think I ran like 7 I booked, something like that. I dialed on a Wednesday or something. As soon as I got my stuff, I had Thursday and Friday. I remember I ran a couple on Thursday. I don't remember exactly. It wasn't great dial, but I mean, I got 7 appointments, right? And I remember running, I think, 5 on Friday. Long story short, I ended up selling like 4 or 5, protecting 4 or 5 people. And I'll just say it was equal to 9 families, okay? So you do the math on that. And I remember on Monday waking up and seeing that Americo thing come in email. And it was, over 9 families, if you will. And that's when I was like, okay, I trust this guy. And I know that sounds weird, but dude, if you tell me something, it's like if you tell me to walk across something and there's a fire there, but it's not going to burn your feet, and it doesn't, I probably would do it again, even if I didn't know. And so that's what happened. The trust was there because he didn't lie to me. Like, he wasn't lying to me. Why does he have a reason to lie to me? And so that really was in the first week. I know it sounds crazy. And then a couple weeks later, I met Sean and at that meeting, and the same thing. He said, "Go do this." I'll never forget the first time I met Sean. He said to me, and he had just met me, he said, "If you ever need anything because of what you're going through in the transition, you let me know. Just call me." Now, I never had to use that till way later on, but that's pretty cool to know that the CEO of the company is there for you as well. And I met a lot of the guys that day, and they made me feel at home, like I was part of the team, even though I was just getting started. I don't know if that's where the trust came
It
in.
does, man.
Immediate.
Well, and I think that for anybody on here, if you're like, well, I don't know, maybe you have trust issues from working with a prior company or having I don't know what in your past might be keeping walls up, but the one thing that helped me break walls down, because I think everybody's had relationships where the person maybe didn't do right by you, right? I know I have, going back and looking at my past, but for me, I just always thought, like, Dave, if this person's a good person, they're going to have their best interest for me. And in this business also, what kind of, maybe it was a weird way to look at it, but I thought even if they're a bad person, their best interest is still for me, because if I'm successful, they make more money too, because there's an override. So if I go out there and help more families, they're going to make more income. So why would they say something? Like, a selfish person doesn't just take out a gun and shoot themselves in the foot. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So if they're giving me wrong feedback, like, why would they do that? I'm not going to go out and help more families. They're not going to make. And so in this business, it by nature, I think if you understand those two thoughts, it's a lot easier to be coachable, because how do you argue that? Like, that's the case. The next thing I want to really step into, Dave, is that, I think people have probably heard this before, that whole quote, like, discipline equals freedom. And, being self-employed, I think self-employed without structure, without schedule, without standards, self-employed becomes unemployed, because without discipline, that self gets stolen away, right? You've got to have a good game plan. You got to have good structure. And I believe as much freedom as we've got being self-employed, there's a lot of responsibility, right? It's who's given much is required. What's required to have structure, to have schedule, to have standards. And if you have those, you're more likely to experience the freedom that FFL can give you. But if you don't, you're more likely to lose the self that's in self-employed and just simply become an employee again, working for somebody else and not having that freedom. So can you talk about, like, first let's park and spend maybe a couple minutes on structure. Like, what does that look like? How important has structure been for you? And maybe, if there's a tied to environment, maybe like the work spots and these different things that can give an agent structure. that will really kind of help tee them up to make the right choices or develop the right disciplines long enough until they have the right habits. But how important is structure, and what structures can somebody put in place that will really help them build these right habits that'll lead them to the success that they want to have?
Well, that's a great question. That's life. Structure, I think. For me, it was big. I remember, first starting, we were at convention, and my wife says, you got to get back in the office, because she knows me better than anyone. And I'm ADD, guys. I'm distracted. I'm getting distracted here. I'm over here, whatever. That's just how my brain works. What can I do next? And so for me, being in the office by 7 a.m., ready to dial at 7:30, having that structure was huge for me. The other thing that I did for accountability was I got on a Zoom. I still do it. To this day. We have it on today. Like on the 4th, we're going to dial, right? We got it, so we're going to have, usually have it up here on the TV, but I don't have it up there right now. I'm actually on the computer. But it's on here. I got a Zoom over here, whatever. I've got multiple things going on. But for me, that's still it's just almost like a habit. And I created that habit by the first day. It's showing up 7:30 by myself. Then I hired Aaron, so somebody would be in the office. I'd have somebody to talk to if I wanted to. But I was on those Zooms every Mondays and every Thursdays. I was dialing the phone with other people, which held me accountable. I knew that in order to get the office by 7, I had to get up early. I wanted to work out, therefore I would get up a little earlier to do that. I wanted to read or pray or anything else. I could always get that done ahead of time if I got up early enough. So I'm not telling you what time to get up. I choose to get up somewhere between 4 and 5 most every day. Sometimes it's 4, 4:15, whatever, call it 4 a.m. club. But it was a discipline I created for myself. Paul, I'll be honest with you, this morning I didn't want to get up at 4:15. But at a little bit before 4, my brain said, you're waking up. And I looked and I'm like, man, I'm not going back down for 15 minutes. Why is that silly? I'm not hitting a snooze button, I'll do that. So I got up, went out and did my workout, and today is a good day. And my point is once you create, that was a habit I created. I didn't even know I was doing it. It was a discipline that I've created over time. Even my body knows it, And so that's where I think the creating that schedule is important. Whatever it is, like Paul, I think there's no balance when you want to build it the way we want to build it, but you still have to take some intentional time with your kids, with your wife. And I had a, direct conversation with my wife. I need 2 years. Well, so again, the structure of it was I was going to work my tail off on Monday to book my appointments. If I didn't finish it because I was recruiting, because that's what I did. I recruited in the afternoons and did some other things. I would come back to home and do the rest of my dialing to finish up my appointments. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, she knew where I was going to be. I was in the field all day. Like I'd start at 7, 8, 8. I'd meet them as quick as 6 a.m. It didn't matter. I was already up anyway. So I'd start my days at 7, 8, whenever they'd meet with me, and go till whenever I needed to. And I did that those 2 days and come back on, Tuesdays and Thursdays were days where I could get home and have dinner if I wanted to because I was at the office, and I could get home, have dinner, and then continue to work. And then Saturdays were not an option for a while. I was either in the field or if I wasn't in the field that day, which is probably every other weekend I was in the field, I was on the phone with my agents. I did Zooms. I was booking appointments. I was recruiting. I was answering phone calls when they were in the home, all that stuff. So I had those structures in place. Church on Sunday, my family, whatever I had to do, and still had my phone. And I don't know if that helps you, but I think people have to make a decision what they want out of the business. And depending on how big and how fast they want to grow will depend on that structure. But if someone says, I want an integrity deal, that structure is going to be a little bit different than someone who just wants to go make, protect, 7, 8, 10 families a week, I think, because there's other things involved. It's, recruiting from day one. It's talking to your agents and doing a lot of other things than just selling.
I love that, dude. Well, I'll tell you what, man, this is the stuff, like there's a ton of actionable points that you're highlighting. And so I hope everybody's kind of, as they're taking these notes, you're creating some notes next to the notes you're taking and putting how you can apply this stuff, because you're highlighting a lot of things that if we can say, hey, we're giving this a 10, we're going to be growing at a high level. Like the schedule and the structure and the standards, those are so essential to going out there and seeing success. Like Dave, everybody on here, for the most part, would say, man, I want to see success. Maybe success looks a little different for each person. But most of the time, it's I want to go out and help, maybe 40 families a month, or I want to go out there and have an agency doing X amount. Like they have these goals. And so most people, have very similar goals as far as what they want to accomplish, where they want to go, but they have vastly different systems and plans to get there, right? And some don't have any, and you're running by default, and usually that default's never going to get you anywhere. In fact, it's never going to lead to progress or growth. By intention, it does. Like, Dave, if I asked you, Thursday at 3:00, what are you doing? You would probably have an answer, right? And that's probably been like that from day one.
Yep.
And if I said Friday at 9 a.m., what are you doing? Yep. You would probably know what you're doing, right? And see, that's the thing. So the question that I have for everybody is do you know what you're doing tomorrow at 1, at 5, at even 9 p.m.? Because when you become intentional, even blocking out the things, like, everybody has different roles in their life. For me, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a business owner. I got these different hats that I wear. I have faith. So I got to plan those things in to make sure I'm growing and developing in those areas. In fact, for me, if my faith, my fitness isn't right, then it almost seems like all the other things I become less accountable, and they become more, I guess it's almost like they erode more, right? But for you, like, having those things all planned and scheduled, like, well, at 9 o'clock, I'm tucking my kids in. Well, what does that look like? Do you have any kind of intentionality with that? And be clear, I have a lot of times I'll say, well, I'm going to read it, and I don't. But because I say it, a lot of times I'll follow up on something that I never would have thought about in the first place because it was thought about. And so I would just encourage everybody, when looking at finding the freedom with Family First Life, it's going to take, a part of the recipe is going to have structure. Are you putting yourself in environments where, like Dave said, we're all distracted, by the way, Dave. I know that you drink a lot more energy drinks than most of us, so that enhances probably the distractive factor, or maybe the focus factor. I don't know. But we're all distracted, man. Like, especially now with our phone alone. Dude, I'm distracted all the time. But if we can put ourselves in environments where those cues go off less likely, or we're less likely to become habitual and be triggered and fall into that routine, we're more likely to start to build these new standards and routines that are going to lead us to the success we want. And so I would just say, if you're not plugging into a work spots event or office, that might be the very difference in you getting to where you want to go in the next 90 days. Just that alone.
That was something I should have mentioned. I mean, obviously in office, if you can get to office, I still get on my Zooms. But yeah, that's huge, Paul, being around people. Whether, again, Zoom, if that's all you can get to, but if you can get to office, I 100% agree with that, 1,000%.
Hey, Dave, I didn't even realize this, but, when I got started, I would dial in my master bedroom. I put a little desk in there, Now, given, we only had 2 bedrooms, and one was my daughter, so everything had to go in my master bedroom. But, dude, I remember always feeling, like, more tired when I worked from my home. And I didn't know why at the time. But, dude, that's where I sleep. You know what I mean? Like, I sleep in my master bedroom. So your body is going to feel and have those emotions and feelings tied to the environment that it's in, right? And so, but when I went to an office and it's not where I sleep, my mind doesn't associate that with sleep. It associates it with productivity, working, being getting after something, being action oriented, right? I'm less likely to be distracted by my phone because I got people and peers around me that are doing the things that I know I need to be doing. So that peer pressure is positive, and it causes me to make the right choices. And so all of a sudden, when I remove myself from an environment that doesn't hold all these different triggers and cues, that doesn't lead to the disciplines and the habits that are going to lead to success, all I did was switch my environment. And so, guys, the structure is so essential. Like, Dave, when you said I'm just distracted really easily, but when I have my Zoom there, it just all of a sudden, well, it's a different trigger. The Zoom now causes you to be less distracted because that trigger says, man, it's time to dial. It's time to dial. I've got my Zoom going. I got my people looking. I'm part of this dial team. And it also enhances accountability, which is essential to being a successful agent, which leads to the freedom you desire. And the plan is great. The standards saying, man, I just always got there at 7 a.m. So what I would encourage everybody to do too is maybe write a list of what your standards are. Like, what does that look like? Do you have any standards? Because that makes life easier and it allows you to live in freedom, and you don't have to go back and start going back and forth on, should I do this? Should I do that? It kind of gets away from the should I's as well, right? Because if you just say, I always wake up at this time, or I always get to the office at this time, or I always buy leads on these days, or I always go to my last appointment, or I always door knock between appointments. If you've got these standards where it's like it's a non-negotiable. I don't care how I feel. I don't care what's going on. This is a non-negotiable. Now all of a sudden you're just going through the motion. You just got to go. You just got to take action. You just got to move, right? And it makes it so much easier. All right, the last thing I want to kind of touch upon in this topic of freedom, which I hope, man, this has been so good for me, Dave, and I know it has been for everybody else. In fact, if you've not already shared this, I highly suggest you share it. This message that Dave's bringing, I promise you, can make a difference in somebody else's career, their life, and maybe that simple share will make the difference you want to make this week. Also, like and comment below. We do a drawing every single week where up to 4 agents win $250 in lead money. And again, this last week I had another agent come up and say, man, I won the lead money. I got the leads. I went out there and served 3-4 families, and things are moving, which is really, really cool to see. So, but the last thing I want to kind of go into is talking about like finding freedom in your mind, right? Like really kind of demolishing these strongholds that I believe that we can bring on board from just our past, whether that was being an employee. So now you're finally, free. You can work your own schedule, but maybe you've never worked your own schedule before. And so you're still, in this mindset of, needing to be told what to do. Or maybe, you've always kind of had this mindset of like, man, hopefully we could just have enough to pay the bills and stuff. And now you're stepping into an opportunity where there's no income lid, but the one that you put on yourself. Or maybe you've been dealing with guilt and shame from different things you did or didn't do in the past, and now as you bring it on here, maybe that's holding you back from experiencing the truth, which the truth is that you can absolutely go out there and be successful. The truth is that all of us, and we 30 plus integrity partners now, the stories that we all have are vastly different, but we've all got the similar spots of failure, things that we've dealt with, not feeling like we're good enough, a past that didn't say necessarily that you would have a promising future. But there was choices that were made to demolish those lies and to feed the truth and then work from a premise of I can do this. And so, Dave, if you can kind of talk about that, man, like, was there ever doubt or struggles that you had internally, like maybe in your mindset that was derived from the past that kind of made you feel like maybe you wouldn't be able to go out there and do this? And if so, what did you do to help eradicate that? And if not, what did you do to kind of, have these new truths that would tee you up and really give you the future and that you would hope for?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I felt beat down when I got here, honestly. Didn't feel like I was winning, didn't believe maybe the confidence level in myself wasn't where it should have been. And again, when Sean saw me, he saw something in me looking back on it that was still there, and challenged me. And if you challenge me, that's, I'm gonna die trying, And then seeing the bigness of what we did, I know, when you pray about something, sometimes God doesn't give it to you in the time that you're asking, so you got to be patient. And I had asked for this, and here it was. And then, I look at the integrity platform, came out. I learned about that. So then I, obviously prayed and worked hard for that. But I think the naysayers are out there, around us all the time. We have to really protect our minds. In reading that book I was talking about with Ed Milet, and he was talking about the matrix. And so I created this matrix in my mind, which I didn't even know what that meant. And it's just a term he uses. But I started protecting myself again from the news. I started protecting myself from naysayers. I started protecting myself from negative people in my life, even my own family who I love, and I do everything for my family. But when they're around, their mindset may not be where mine is, and I literally have to just funnel that stuff out, like, because it's over here. And I encourage them by giving them who I am. But I literally had to do that, Paul. It was, we mentioned thinking. Thinking can get you in trouble, because most of the time when you're thinking, it goes in a negative way. Whereas if you just go out there and execute what you know in those moments and stop thinking about the destination, because it's easy to set goals. And I think, Paul, that's what I did. I set this big goal. I set these big goals, but I executed on a daily basis in what I knew, which was show up in the home, love on people, That person was the most important person in my world at that time. Nobody else. Served them. Same thing with the agents, focusing on them. And so I got in those moments where I was just executing. I didn't think about all the other stuff. And that takes time. But looking back, that's what I did. It was just, I just put the blinders on, if you will. But I think you have to start right now and start doing that. You have to delete things around you that are bringing negative into your life. Stop listening to junk on the radio if it's not positive. Put podcasts, listen to Paul, listen to Andrew, listen to whatever you filter your brain. That's what I did. I listened to you guys over and over and over again. I didn't listen to music. I was excited about what I was hearing, and I believed in everything that was coming across. Did I know that it was going to be hard? Yes. If it there wasn't some hard to it, and then everybody could do it, right? Everybody who chooses to be here and coachable can do this. Let's just say that. You have to stay the course. You're going to go through stuff. I went through a bunch of stuff before I got here, right? I was ready. Some of you may have to go through some stuff, and the quicker you go through that stuff and stop fighting it and just go do the actions, good things will happen. But if you keep fighting and overthinking stuff, nothing will ever happen. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's just coming from my heart. It's just I didn't overthink anything. And I knew God had me in the right place. I felt his hand on I'm just saying, I'm not trying to preach to anybody, but when I go to a convention and I see my CEO giving back to a place that I learned about in church and was dear to my heart, shows up and I didn't even know he was going to be there, that's not by coincidence. And then they start throwing money on the stage, which that wasn't by coincidence. I've never seen that done before, by the way. Nobody asked for a call. It just happened. And I knew I was in the right place that time, so I came out of there and I was going to die not to build this business. And I was going to be successful one way or the other. I was either going to make a bunch of money for my family by selling, but I was going to find some other people that wanted to go with me, and that's what we did. And we kept sharing it and loving on people and caring. And that's the thing I want to tell people is that when you hire an agent, let them know that you care about them. I'm just that way. I don't know any other way than love them unless they hurt me. And then I got to figure that out. But that's what I did, and I just went and worked hard and followed the blueprint is there. FFL's blueprint is great. Follow it. We make adjustments along the way as a team, as a whole FFL. We get together. I was talking to Zach earlier this morning. I'm talking to you now. I'm talking to other people. It's always learning and helping us grow. Josh Williams, I talked to him earlier. I mean, it's just always trying to make these little tweaks and get better. All of us are. So we're one team. We got a massive blueprint. It works. Thank you, Sean, Mike. Thank you, Paul. And I don't know if that helps, but I hope it does.
Dude, it's great, man. I'll tell you what. A lot of what you're saying, man, is like just like it's consuming good stuff, man. And not to, I'm not gonna preach to anybody right now, but like, when you read the word, God gives you clarity on what to do. Think on good things that are admirable, trustworthy, praiseworthy, of good report. And that's how you demolish strongholds that the enemy can kind of go in and try to feed you, which is, lack of confidence, and really destroying identity. That's not the one that you were created to have. And that identity leads you to make choices that are not going to take you to where you want to go, but they're going to lead you to being enslaved to an outcome you don't want, right? And so as we're talking about freedom today, guys, look at your schedule. How many times, what in your schedule does it show a lot of time that it's faith building, right? Like things that are building your faith up, whether that's testimonies from different top producers in the company. Maybe that's just different training calls that can kind of heighten awareness and show you the deviation between how you're doing it and how it needs to be done, so you can make those tweaks, adjustments, and start to see the progress through the process that will kind of motivate you, encourage you, and keep you going. But what are you doing to feed your faith? Because that's what you just said. You said, man, I just stopped doing the news and I started paying attention to who I was spending time with, and you're building yourself up so that way you have a faith filter when it comes to looking through to see your future. And then it's not just a faith, man, because faith without works is dead, right? It's you're putting action behind your faith amidst having to think and debilitate and think, do I know enough? No, you just put the action behind once the faith has been built, and it leads to the success that you want. And I think that's such a powerful thing. The last thing I'll say as we wrap up, man, is think about, so what you said is I got around people that really, you can almost borrow faith from, that really believed in you, that saw the best in you, and I thought about this the other day as I was reading the word. It talked about, like David, and how Jesse didn't see the king in David. You know what I mean? Like he didn't even show him to Samuel, right? He just showed him all the other brothers and he just saw like the little shepherd boy, David. That's all he was. Not even his own dad saw the royalty and the king in David. But Samuel saw the king in David. and he spoke to that king in David, and he highlighted the king in David. And before King David became a king, took 20-something years or whatever to become king, he had somebody speaking that into him. He had somebody highlighting that which was already in him. He had somebody already fertilizing and shining the light and watering that seed of royalty and kingship that David had in him. And so what I encourage you guys to do today is do you have any Samuels in your life, right? Who is highlighting and finding the good, the seed that you've got in you, and doing their best to highlight that, to water it, to nourish it, to help bring that, to birth that out of you. And if you don't have any Samuels, my suggestion is pray for some, because God will send them to you if you've got that humility, if you've got the faith that if they're going to show up, they'll come into your life, and those Samuels will help take you to a level of freedom that you didn't think you could get to, and you probably couldn't have got to on your own. So David, thank you, man. This was so good, bro. This is definitely worth rewatching and sharing, guys. So make sure to get the message out there. I hope this served you. I hope this served you well. Our goal is to make this week better than last week, and I think this podcast definitely did it for me, man. I'm ready to go out there and take it to the next level. So Dave, thank you for joining, brother. Guys, make it a big week. Be strong, stay steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
What's going on, everybody? You know what time it is. It is time to give away $250 worth of lead credit. If you commented on last week's video, which is playing right over here, you're automatically entered to win $250 in leads. We're picking 4 lucky winners today. So leave a comment down below on this video so you're entered to win next week's drawing. Without further ado, let's see who won this week. Our first winner for this week's drawing is Apple Farm. Thank you for this. I love this. Our second winner is Will Arroyo. Thank you. This is always so inspirational. Our third winner is Diego Ventura, Paul and Trey, hashtag Legends in the Game. And our fourth and final winner is Megan Ventura. Thank you so much for adding value. Appreciate you. Guys, it's that simple. Leave a comment and you could win some free leads to grow your business, help some families, and make a difference in your life and in people's lives. So, winners, get in contact with Victoria. Her phone number is going to be right around here somewhere. And take care, guys. Leave a comment. We'll see you next week. Have a great Monday.